Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another Rambling Live episode of The High Ground with Rambling Bros. This is your usual host, Chris, aka Jonesy, with my co host, DarkNeon, aka Derek.
Konnichiwa.
Yes, and yeah, we're going straight to the point on this one. We're here to discuss the latest entry of the Godzilla franchise, a franchise that has spanned over 70 years, marking it in the record books as among some of the longest running series out there. Follow it in good company with stuff like James Bond, Star Trek, and the MCU and stuff like that. But
Doctor.
yeah. Although he doesn't have the record for the longest running thing ever, that actually still belongs to a British production called The Faulty Towers. That's been going on since the way before Godzilla. So they have that record scrounged on. But other than that, yeah, Godzilla does have with over 29 movies to his credits, plus numerous spin-offs and the like. He is clearly a guy who's left quite the footprint on the entertainment industry, given his size and everything like that.
And definitely quite an interesting thing because if you really think about it, it's not Godzilla isn't really that much different from any B movie monsters that you think of. You think of like the Beast of 20,000 Fathoms. You think of Gorgo. You think of like all these different creatures that have like all these like tecton. Like, oh, man should never interfere with so and so. God shouldn't play God. Blah blah blah. Whatever. But yet this guy seems to have stuck around just as long as, like, say, Scooby Doo has outlasted all of his Hanna Barbera peers and whatnot, or I don't know, say, trying to think of something else off the top of my head.
Well, hell, even
Uh,
King Kong has survived his contemporaries because there were many ape movies, including Maya Joe Young. But the guy that still gets all the recognition is the big ape who climbed up the Empire State Building.
isn't Maya Joe Young done by the same like
Exactly.
team though?
Yeah, he was. He was, and it did. It was the
It,
start.
it's kind. It's actually kind of like an unofficial third entry of the uh, the Kong movies. If you think about it, even James Rolfe said so.
Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, of course. So we all know Godzilla, but do we really know him? Because, like I said, for some people, he is just a figure of fun, a monster movie that appears to wreck shit up. For others, he is, a superhero almost. Always rising to save the day to confront world issues like pollution, greed, or another violent monster that's attacking. To some, he is a warning, a metaphor for what happens when science runs amok, for when man trifles with the annals of science to create untold horrors. And he's either a victim, both victim and vindicator, both villain and victorious. He is all sorts of things over the vast 70 years he's been around.
And yet, given the title of King of the Monsters, it's for 70 years he's definitely showed why he's such a case. Like say in Final Wars, where he pretty much just kind of one-sided curb stomp most of the monsters in the Toho library catalog, save for Mothra, because Mothra was on his side for that fight. Uh, or even the fact that like almost he was almost nigh indestructible to the point that in his first appearance, the only thing that could actually stop him was a hypothetical, dangerous new like concept of weaponizing oxygen. Which, if you think about it, let's just say that Oppenheimer's theory about like setting off the world on fire by blowing up the atom bomb would look like a firecracker.
Yeah. And there's some people that have. It's funny how he's kind of gone on the same trajectory as Batman, where Batman started off as a grim, brooding type of, violent detective pulpy character. Then became a well-rounded hero in the Silver Age, and then became almost a figure of fun and camp with the stuff like the Adam West shows and the stuff that the Silver Age or like the Rainbow Batman and stuff like that. And everyone, after a long time, near one of his big anniversary events, they said, "No, stop! We gotta go back to basics." And they shake the world on fire with a reinvention like The Dark Knight Returns and stuff like that, or Killing Joke. and then he became serious again. Then he would go through that phase again, and also jump back into the silly and ludicrous with the Schumacher films, and then back to basics with the Nolan films, and then go back to comic heights with Snyder, and then come back down to realism with Patterson. It's funny how if you look at Godzilla, he almost matches a similar trajectory.
You're so damn close to that NOS Batman meets Godzilla.
Yeah, that was actually a real thing, and believe it or not, it actually, according to the script, it actually had a concept of a a character who was a fan of Batman that would become a Bat woman, a Bat girl, and she basically predates the Barbara Gordon concept before it was officially unveiled in the show and the comics. I think in the end it just they decided to settle for something else instead of doing the Batman versus Godzilla, but it was pretty close to happening. But so Godzilla has already. It's funny how Godzilla is currently on a bit of a high end because he's been made after a thrilling reinvention in 2014, almost 10 years ago. He's now a star of a what many people consider to be a successful cinematic universe outside of Marvel with the MonsterVerse, which
Well,
has
a lot of people, some people might say otherwise, but we're not listening to those people.
no, yeah, yeah. I mean,
We're too busy having smoke up their asses.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that Johnny Depp and the Dark Universe thing worked out really well if Tom hadn't come involved. But yeah, the MonsterVerse was a big success, and leading up to the rematch of the century with Godzilla versus Kong. He's been making several rounds in anime, including anime such as the Polygon trilogy and Singular Point, which I still actually got to catch up on, and even a reinvention from his own home turf. With Shin Godzilla. Some people are of the opinion just like, Godzilla can come from anywhere, but the real source is from Japan. Yeah, you can get champagne from anywhere, but the real champagne comes from Champagne, France. If you're a certain guy who swears at his games and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's just funny every time you bring up Shin Godzilla. It's almost as if that's one of your most popular videos on this channel.
Oh yes, who will know? Gets a comment every other day. To this day, actually. But yeah. So it was funny we mentioned this because before when we heard a new Godzilla movie was coming, and the fact that it was getting a worldwide release, because when we saw the trailer, we thought, okay, that's cute. They're gonna get it in November, and we have to wait some long time before they decide to send it over here, like Shin Godzilla. And they told us worldwide December 1st. We're like, oh shit, this is actually exciting.
So
So
it's okay. To kind of put it in perspective, it's very rare for Japan to like go out and be ballsy enough to say, okay, you know what? We're not even going to attempt to wait to get the usual dub guys to handle this for their American release. No, we feel confident that even if you watch this subbed is in a different language, you will still be moved by it.
yeah,
They didn't blow it.
what they said was that they wanted to expand Godzilla's international brand and appeal. That's why they set up the Godzilla's U.S. store. They set up all kinds of stuff. They want to set a foothold. So this was their big 70th anniversary project, and uh, they got a guy who already cut his teeth with them using a few shorts and even their ride. His name is Takeshi Yamaka. Okay, I'm gonna screw it up if I don't have it in front of me. Okay, he's directed by Takashi Yamazaki, who is an auteur filmmaker for Toho. In fact, he made a really awesome film called The Great War of Archimedes. I highly recommend it. And we thought when that movie was coming out, announced, we thought we do the crazy idea of cramming in just about every live action Godzilla film into a single month. I,
Oh boy.
I say live action because
But to be fair, that was this is my idea, and then like obviously when Freak brought it up, Josie's like, "Oh hey, that's cool. Can I join in?" And like, "Nah, what the hell? Come on, let's just do it." We did not plan this well.
Oh yeah, especially
How
during the Thanksgiving week. Yeah, that was rough. But I'll say this though, I learned a very good sleep aid for Derek at times now, thanks to this series. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
to be fair, I'm pretty sure putting on a copy of Godzilla's Revenge will put anyone to sleep.
I'll give you that. But it was very fun because we also challenged ourselves to watch them in their availability and in all of them in Japanese. There was a few that they came in English. There was no other way we were going to listen to it, but And there was only one that we chose to dub on purpose, and that was the Godzilla 2000 dub.
But to be fair, he already watched it subbed on the big screen. I had to mess it up because the day before that, I literally had like 4 Halloween centric movies to do on Halloween. It's like in order: Night Before Christmas, Friday Nights at Freddy's, Saw X, and then the special Halloween viewing of The Shining with a very captive audience. And yeah, there was no way I was gonna like do another long trip to another distant theater just for to see Godzilla 2000. But it turns out it would have just been subbed anyways, and I find that to be a little bit more hilarious and actually fitting of the tone, which is supposed to be grounded but also kind of a little bit silly.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the famous lines from the thing is, "We have a new type of armor-piercing weapon. I guarantee it'll go through Godzilla like crap through a goose." Yeah, but
I guess I have to send more flowers.
oh god, oh my gosh, Katagiri was such an anime character, and he was played by the great Ron Yuan, who was the current voice of Hanzo Hasashi Scorpion in the MK games until recent events make another character Scorpion. But I'm not going to get into that here. But um, the we watched
Yeah,
them all.
yes, and yes, if before yes, we did slip in '98. I'm sorry, but we still count it as part of the Godzilla mythos, mostly because the TV cartoon had did do the Godzilla license proud, and also the fact that the Zilla design appears in Final Wars anyways. And we both enjoyed '98 so much, and to be frank, I really just wanted to break in my new 4K set that I
On
just
top
got.
of that, it was the 20th anniversary this year anyway, right?
Size still matters. That's the hashtag I'm still pushing.
Even funnier, as we were watching the older movies, I kept saying, this is a lot like that moment in '98. And he kept saying, it's all. I'm pretty sure that was Dean Devlin doing his best to sneak in as much classic Godzilla isms into that movie. Because Roland honestly admitted he never grew up with the stuff. He's not had no attachment. In fact, he was trying hard to get removed from the project, and he was surprised that they let him take it as far as they did.
You remember that joke at the end of Home Alone 3 for the Nostalgia Critic where it turned where Doug makes it seem like this entire movie was just like one big fever dream that John Hughes wrote up just so Fox wouldn't ask him to make any more Home Alone movies, and yet they still bought it. And it's like my career's over. Yeah, that's pretty much what Roland was trying to do with '98.
Anyway, I said all live action films because I know I would have to use a crowbar and maybe a very, very fancy, game code or whatever to let him agree to watch the Polygon trilogy again. But
You could pay me enough money to sit through that gobbledygook nonsense.
at least Planet of Monsters you did kind of like. But I remember you laughing your ass off when he had an emotional breakdown seeing grass for the first time in who knows how long, and he said the world hasn't forgotten us. And you told me of all the smolchy sentimental crap I've ever heard, that was the smolchiest. You were laughing, if I remember, because you didn't expect.
I honestly say that the third one is probably the best, mostly because it they reinvent Ghidorah as like this interdimensional, like eldritch being, which I totally buy King Ghidorah being like imagined that way, and of course Godzilla having to fight being like that on his own.
And
It's
Mothra makes a cameo, but for him, the ending just flat out ruins the entire trilogy. We're not even going to get into it here, but I remember him actually being legit what happened and me just laughing my ass off at his reaction to what just happened. God, yeah, never again. But
I don't even remember it, but I'm just gonna take your word for it, and I'm pretty sure there's probably a good reason why I don't remember it. It's probably that batshit stupid.
oh yeah, they were going to live happily ever after with the afterlife guys, and the scientist guy finds a remain of one of their prototype flying craft, and he says he could probably get technology back on the path of, innovation again. So the guy takes his comatose girlfriend. He's pissed off, and he actively provokes Godzilla so he can destroy him and the ship, saying that no one must remember the hatred of the past to continue the mistakes. I get the intention, but the way it was executed was so. And even Godzilla was like, "Huh? What the hell was?" He had a look on his face like, "What the hell was that?" After doing it.
Ugh.
You remember it now, don't you?
I do remember thinking like it was so stupid to do that when a smarter thing should be like to take that prototype design and destroy it himself, and actually explain equivocally saying like, look, this whole shit is the reason why Godzilla attacked us and made us having to flee in the first place. Let's not do that again. But sure, let's not learn from history. God only knows real life doesn't do that anyways anymore. If 2020 is any indicator.
But yeah, so I think what I found funny rewatching this marathon was just how much movies I didn't care much for ended up really affecting me this time. Like Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, Ebra was always a bit of a social movie, but my first encounter with it was a very horrible dub that TriStar did. But not TriStar themselves, but they commissioned out a third party to do the dubbing, and it just was over the top and goofy. Which I understand it's a Showa film, but even I was going like, you guys were really laying it on thick. But
Also, it didn't help that it was originally meant written to have King Kong in the role, and instead, like they went cold feet, like, you know what? Maybe I think we would probably sell this better if this was a Godzilla movie.
yeah, but native Japanese Ebera was a much better film.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I really loved watching Godzilla against Mechagodzilla this time around. Before, I thought it was an okay so show Millennium film, but after rewatching it this time, I really got invested on it. Although we were surprised at how glum, positively grim the Akane and the Japanese dub was. We're going like, well, shit, I don't remember the English version going this hard.
But didn't I tell you that Kiryu was had personality for days, and that's why that version of Mechagodzilla is my favorite?
Uh huh. But yeah. Anyway, all that preamble, I think Derek did say this though. If there ever is another major Godzilla film coming for like a big anniversary event, we want to do a marathon that way. At least give it some more breathing room.
Yeah, let's not try to do it in between having like one of us who's a big Halloween junkie having uh celebrated and enjoyed his uh as much of the month as he possibly could, and then in starting the transition from one holiday to another, and then oh yeah, we also have holiday hoopla to deal with, like Thanksgiving and all that. Yeah, let's not do that again.
Okay, so that brings us to Godzilla Minus One. Also, by the way, did you ever catch more of the Battle of Archimedes, or did you just watch the Great War of Archimedes, or did you just watch the intro that I recommended?
I only watched the intro. I wish I had actually sat down and watched it because I was not prepared for the heart tear jerker, heart wrenching gut punch that Minus One turned out to be. We'll get to that when we get to that. Honestly, I just only watched the first 5 minutes just to see the cinematography and like the scope that this director is
And you told me
meant to
you
go for.
understood. You understood just from that alone. Like, okay,
I thought I understood, but clearly I didn't.
yeah. So what's funny is that this isn't the first time he's directed Godzilla officially per se. He had that small. He had a movie that was based off a manga about this guy growing up in the '60s and stuff. And
You
one of
pro-
the
some of you internet savvy people probably know it's called Always Sunset.
on Sunset on Third Street, something like that. And this sequel, Always Two, opens up with a dream sequence that involves Godzilla, and it's actually half terrifying, half tongue in cheek. Because at one point the dad goes Super Saiyan because his auto shop got smashed.
You sit on my other step. And Godzilla just gives it a look and say, "Yeah, so what?
You
What are you
can
gonna
build
do?"
me.
Okay. And what else did he do?
Oh yeah, he also had a hand in Godzilla the Ride, the actual 4D ride made over there for Universal Tokyo.
Not to be confused with the Shin Godzilla meets Evangelion ride that's
Yeah.
at the same park, I think.
I think it was a temporary ride. They replaced the Shin Godzilla versus Evangelion with the Godzilla the Ride.
Boy, you must be seeing a bit, not having gotten to experience that.
I think it was the Great War of Archimedes that got Yamakaze the role. And he said this. He said that the worldwide anxiety and government unreliability during pandemic was one of his major inspirations for doing the story. Oh boy, yeah. It's funny when
Huh.
they when he made the movie, it was under the working title Blockbuster Monster Movie. They didn't tell people it was a Godzilla movie until well into production to keep it secret. You
that
gotta
that
give him.
was that also reminds me of when I forget what the guys, the directing guys are called. Adam Wingard uh, pitched the movie called The Woods, and then like they invite the screening in, and then they show the trailer, and it turns out, bam! It's actually a stealth Blair Witch sequel, and of course, it's everyone like exits all the Woods posters turn into Blair Witch posters. It, no one saw that one coming. Probably the same deal with this one.
Well, yeah. Another thing too about Godzilla is I found out the reason why there hasn't been a new one since Shin Godzilla was honestly because of a contract that said that Toho was forbidden from releasing any other Godzilla movies at this live action Godzilla movies at the same time as Legendary doing their spiel until after 2020.
I guess that kind of makes sense. Like 2014 didn't flop, so they clearly had to like okay, so you guys need to know what you're doing. Let's see you guys keep going with that. Because to be fair, like despite like the '98 misgivings, Japan really does seem like uh, they really want to see other people who are excited to work on Godzilla projects do them for them.
Yeah.
So, but I can see why they still had that a little bit of the itch there.
Well, yeah. So I like I said, this guy is a well known filmmaker over there, and the fact that like I said, the Great War of Archimedes was such a great project. It was based off about a fictionalized account of the efforts to build the battleship Yamato, which was one of the biggest ships in the fleet, and how a genius, quirky mathematician guy had to help another general prove why this project isn't as cheap as the admiral is proposing it to be, because he wants to make his plan happen, which is involving more aircraft carriers to prevent. He tells him it's to prevent a war when in reality there was ulterior motives. But it had for some, I called it Oppenheimer meets A Few Good Men, and because it's more about rather than the war, it's more about the people. But I mean, some of these were real figures mixed with some fictional figures that are like characterized versions of actual people. But yeah, it was a very riveting drama.
Hmm. I'll take your word on that because I haven't seen the entire movie,
Okay,
the
so
Archimedes one, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's on YouTube currently for free if you're a premium member. So here's the thing, though. It's very funny. We didn't know anything about this. We knew there was a Godzilla movie announced like a couple of while back, but not much was of it. Then out of nowhere, we get told that it's gonna have a name. It's gonna be called Godzilla Minus One, which we're like, huh. And then
Well, that well to be fair, the trailer immediately spells out why they call it that. It's post-war Japan. Everyone has lost everything, and so it's go from minus to from zero to minus when Godzilla shows up. So basically, they have nothing. They're basically like living off of scraps and salvage of post-war Japan. They're trying to build something from nothing, and then all of a sudden now there's a giant monster that's coming in and steamrolling like all their nothing. So they go from one disaster that left them with nothing to another disaster that's tearing them down even further.
then when that I remember that first trailer was just like a bunch of like quick images and stuff falling, and you only see Godzilla's feet for a split second. Then they made that actual full trailer, which announced the worldwide release, and that one shook us like, well, shit.
I remember I called it like imagine I can imagine that this must be what people in 54 in Japan saw on the big screen.
Yeah, and then I love that there was the a subtitle version of the trailer, and there was a line that particularly struck me when it said that monster will never forgive us, and I went, well, damn. And there was a lot of horrific quick flashes of what they were dealing up against. And they made another trailer which was just as epic, and they made that final trailer which was a real big hype trailer where we're like, well, God damn. And then the fact they keep saying, well, in U.S. theaters December 1st, we couldn't even wait to get to this thing.
And then they said, "Oh yeah, by the way, we have an early fan screening on November 29th." And did you know it? Fate had us being able to accomplish that. Well, at first it was only just me, but then certain things with our friends kind of got shuffled, and then Josie got to have that. So we both saw it on the early access opening night, 29th of November.
Yeah. We have like a friend thing that happens every Wednesday, and then well, if we do the timing right, that'll land us right on one of our meeting ups. Thankfully, stuff had to occur to make it postponed, so that gave us time to actually actually do it. And funny, and at first it still wasn't going to happen. I thought because well, it would coincide with me getting out of work, and I don't know if the guys were off that day. But thankfully, they added more times, and that gave me the opportunity I needed.
So yeah, so we have watched -1, and we are clearly we set up this impromptu review because we have a hell of a lot to talk about. This, quite frankly, I'm just gonna say it right out bat without ever discussing what it is, and we'll discuss and we'll uh,
Go into detail.
go into detail and provide evidence to the fact. I'm going to say it. This is probably the best Godzilla movie ever, and it will eclipse the '54 original. And I know there's some people who are calling for my head, calling me blasphemous. Could I would be most wanted number 2 as opposed to that guy that posted on Rotten Tomatoes that got the 100% score down to 97.
He's a YouTuber, by the way, not like an official press critic, but he's enough to be. It's kind of like Grace Randolph and Jeremy Johnson in terms of that their word has sway on the meter.
Mm.
I won't say his name because we're not doing witch hunting around here, but I'll just say though, oh, you've kicked a hornet's nest, my friend. But G fans can be crazy. I've seen fights break out about legendary crap versus that Toho shit that they can't even get their own guy right stuff. I've been in the trenches for years seeing that stuff, and even Derek asked me, "Why do you hang out around there if they say stuff like that?" I don't know, but yeah. So like I said though, yeah, I would say this is definitely amongst the all-time top Godzilla films up there. My ranking is always inconsistent. I'll be honest. 54, you can always guarantee will have a spot in the top somewhere, but
I
this
know
is
Shin Godzilla's got to be at least in your top 5 because you like have it for the Evangelion guy.
yeah. On top of that, you seen how many videos I made using Shin Godzilla music? I
Yep.
mean, one of my second most popular videos is not even a Shin Godzilla movie, but it uses a scene edited like it, and that's the Evangelion attack on Ramiel, Operation Yashima, which is like Operation Yashiyori. You would have heard that if it weren't for disease. Um, it was late. I forgive you on that. But yeah, this one I was hearing even before I saw it. There were a lot of like reviews from people who flew to Japan to see it, unsubtitled. They probably didn't even know a lick of Japanese, but they wanted to go see it, and even they said it was really something. And people who understood the language said they were like emotionally shook, moved, terrifying was a word I kept hearing. I heard an emotional masterpiece, which is something you wouldn't think about for Godzilla's movie. You think they'd be describing Schindler's List or something with the way some of these reviews were going.
I mean, it did win an Oscar, a Japanese Oscar. I mean, but even
Um,
still.
yeah, not yet. I think that hasn't. I think Shin has, but I'm pretty. I would.
Well, sorry, I thought we were talking about Shin.
Oh, I'm still talking about minus one.
Okay.
The fact that reviews coming out of that one was that
I Oh yeah, because I -1 did come out like a lot
in
earlier
November.
overseas. So yeah, I guess people were like wanting to go over there.
But yeah, this thing, I won't be surprised if this thing does win top awards in Japan, not just for like their cinematography and effects, but for like acting and writing and directing. If this should win the gold over there. I know they make a lot of films more than just monster movies, but I think this what here's the best thing about this movie. It's if you literally took out Godzilla, there would still be enough of an interesting things out there. Which that was actually the intention of director Michael Dougherty when he did King of the Monsters, and whether he succeeded or not is up to you. But that I read in the book, the making of book, that was his direct intent. Was I really wanted to focus on a family to make you say, imagine if there were no monsters or world-ending stuff. Would this still be interesting? And I said I thought there was something there. He said, and this I say this minus one definitely hits that mark. Hell, the guy who ended up kickstarting the MonsterVerse, Gareth Edwards, actually said this is probably his favorite movie in the series. Because I remember an article saying Gareth Edwards names his most favorite movie in the series, and it isn't his. And it's because that would be ego if it was, but it was. He said minus one. He actually said he was initially a little embarrassed and jealous, saying, "Well, crap, that's what I wanted my 2014 movie to be for." But he said this is probably the best reinvention he's seen of the monster by far.
In fact, there's some people speculated if they were going to use minus one to jumpstart if this is the Reiwa era properly starting. Because technically it started with 2014 and Shin Godzilla, but the era timelines most have been filled up with the legendary movies, and also there's anime stuff. Not many much of the Toho live action stuff. It's just between Shin and this one. But there's a lot of people who are hoping and thinking that minus one might actually lay out the foundation for a new timeline, essentially.
And
And
then,
I would be up for if it just stood on its own or if it did start to continue, because well, they they definitely didn't. It definitely made it seem like it wasn't a one and done. Let's just say that.
but yeah, this like I says, Derek, because of time zones and my work schedule, Derek had to was able to see it many hours before I did. My showtime was actually 5 hours after his,
Yep,
and
5 p.m. Eastern time.
yeah, which would have been 3 o'clock my time. My showtime was at 8. So what's funny is he came out of it, and he said he had to take a moment in his car to,
Yeah,
just take a moment.
yeah. The most I could do was grab my own IMAX Godzilla poster, which did you got yours too, right?
Yes, that's actually framed right
Yes,
now.
awesome. I got the poster. I walked to the parking lot. My heart was kind of beating a little bit because like the ending like really got me emotional, and I just said I got in the car, still chilly a little bit, and I thinking like, okay, wait, maybe I should just take a moment to just like recover and recoup because if like I'm in unfamiliar territory, I don't really drive up and down where that theater was as often, and I think I needed to like really like steel myself before like I get off and go home. That took about a good 10 minutes to like really like grab myself like really let the movie sink in because
Hell,
it was that like solid.
there was another guy in a server that I'm with, and he said he went to go see it. Then he said back in his thing, I am not the same man I was 2 hours ago. He said, you'd believe that kind of talk. Other
It,
people saying it's peak cinema. That this like I says, and hell, like I says, on the week of release, it was at 100. Everybody who's seen it had given it 100%, and I'm seeing a lot of videos pop up today, and a lot of the guys, even people who aren't like usual Godzilla fans or Godzilla people, are giving top marks to this movie just for being what most franchise movies should be: a good movie first, and then a property movie second. There's some movies that this is a good type of this movie, but if you took that element out, it's nothing special type movies. But this they all agreed was a good movie. So the funny thing is, like I said, this is set in post-war Japan.
which we never really actually explored. The like, yeah, 54 was still kind of close to that event, but it wasn't really as close. It was like a good 10 years after the bombs had dropped for Japan to kind of steel themselves. And the movie only got made because of an incident with a boat getting too close to a bomb testing site,
Yeah, big oof right
and
there.
yeah, and that one just kind of made certain people think like, you know, if it wasn't a bomb testing site, what if it could have been the warning site of something even terrible, even worse than the bombs dropping on our homeland?
Yeah, what the idea was that the producer saw Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and said a giant monster movie would be amazing in Japan. Because he said that he was flying, because he has a conference for something. He flew overhead in the water and he said to himself, imagine if something massive was living under those waters.
Yeah, I have the 54 movie playing on mute right now. It is still evoking, and I can still see where that mindset kind of was trying to rattle and remind the people that the devastation is heartbreaking to witness. But this setting, we're like fresh off the war. This is more of a period piece. We don't have jetliners. We don't have like sturdier tanks. These are like if you actually brushed up on your history, you know that Japan was kind of stingy on their supplies, just a tad a little bit. Uh, the tanks were uh, ironclad sturdy for one thing. Uh, I think they only had like one boat that was actually souped up. The rest of them were just kind of tacked on,
And
and
of course,
oh, most and of course they invented the kamikaze, where they had pilots in planes, but
no ejector seat.
no ejector seats. They were like they went in that plane. They were going to be expecting to either go down in flames or probably come back if they were successful. Very slim chance of that happening.
Yeah, it's like the old Spartan ideal. You come back on your shield or you don't come back at all, stuff like that. And yeah, like they said, it was always fight down to the last man. When we were watching Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, they mentioned that all the garrisons on the islands in the Pacific conflict, you know, every man fought down to the end. And hell, if you watch movies like Letters from Iwo Jima or Flags of Our Fathers, you would see that if the army was utterly defeated, the generals would commit honorable suicide and do a gut rip seppuku. But because they always had these cool swords, and those swords weren't just for commanding and fighting; it was also to like off themselves on the chance they were disgraced in battle, and the only way out is an honorable death. Like that's how they view. They were so cavalier with life that way, which is actually an important message in this movie. Uh, yeah, like it says, and they were rebuilding. And the funny thing is that with them being rebuilt, in a world that has changed in the advent of the atomic bomb and the advent of a world where Japanese imperialism and expansionism led to a quick kick in the ass and nose in the dirt, that they had to rise up. And then of course now you got this problem creature coming out of nowhere.
Which I think we should at least give it a go to say that Godzilla, when he appears like right off the gate almost. He's definitely not what you imagine that your first time seeing him is going to be like.
Well, it's best to quote Anakin when he first saw General Grievous in person in Revenge of the Sith.
You're sure than I expected.
But yeah, so
But the,
yeah,
I think probably shrinking down Godzilla just a little bit. I think you know how okay, if anyone has actually seen the '98 Godzilla cartoon series, you know where the baby Zilla is starting to grow up, and he reached a point where he encounters Nick again, but he's not like the full grown being, in, like he's like at a size where he could just like grab Nick, and it looks like he's like almost King Kong size. Yeah, actually, yeah, we'll just go with that. He's pretty much basically King Kong size, and the way he attacks these mechanics and soldiers on this strip field is honestly goddamn brutal. like,
And I think it was more that,
and you thought the Godzilla in GMK all Giant Monsters All Attack was brutal, relentless, and evil. This dude does not give any shits. He will like bite you down, stomp you down, fling you around.
and I think he was being territorial more than anything. But yeah, and on top of
Well,
that,
he definitely was enjoying his time with them. Let's just say that.
well, yeah, I mean, after he gets souped up to proper Godzilla's size, he's definitely a much more malicious figure. But yeah, it's very funny. Like I didn't expect it to happen, and when there was a couple of audible, I call it Mortal Kombat Owing because there's a noise if you uppercut right, you actually hear the background go oh, and the whole theater pretty much did that when one poor bastard tried to flee and just gets jaws around his from the top of his head down to his waist, jaws bite, and then he just gets flung like a ragdoll.
And you thought the Indominus Rex in Jurassic World was ruthless.
This is the opposite of the Godzilla saw in King Ghidorah, where that one was pretty much just wandering around, minding his own business. Then these guys decided to shoot him, and he decides that only then did he start like smashing them and stepping on them. But this guy was like just out. He was like a kid kicking a sandcastle. Just mm.
Kicking a sandcastle, fighting some ants with it, and deciding like, ew, ants, I just squash them.
That's basically the mentality, and also the vibe. You know what's great about this vibe is it's a very quiet movie at times until the devastation happens. Then it's like all chaos, sound, and fury, and it's again, and it has an interesting vibe because it's not a bleak, depressing film like say 54, but there is an underlying sense of dread and palpable tension and terror, especially with the fact that they actually make you give a damn about the cast to really get into it. But another thing too is the vibe is when they're set up against Godzilla, there is a sense of hopelessness of like you're throwing a rock at a hurricane, expecting something to happen, but just in your heart of hearts, there's no place to flee. It's like I don't know. There's an impending sense of doom whenever he is doing his stuff, whether they're out on the sea in his turf, or whether he actually makes landfall and begins just laying waste just with his simple steps. It's just like
You are basically feeling dread and fear when Godzilla shows up, which hasn't a feeling that hasn't which is a feeling that hasn't felt since. Well, to be fair, Shin Godzilla also had that, but I definitely feel like he was definitely more felt in GMK Giant Monster Attack when
which
it was like built up as this uh like cobbled up uh spirit like entity of like the rage and hatred of all the soldiers that were like tossed into this war and were all being at the risk of being forgotten for what they did.
yeah. And here's the funny thing: the director admitted GMK is one of his all-time favorite Godzilla movies, and he hadn't seen it in a while. But he said subconsciously, he kind of threw in a little influence of that into this, and you can kind of tell with some particular things, especially that ending and the fact that I like that one of the signature characters that comes through is a guy named Tachibana, which if you remember was the name of the admiral in Yuri.
Also, I can definitely see like where does his tail whip ability to knock down newscasters reporting.
Yeah, it also happened in GMK. But yeah, so but again, but this is not a bleak film. There is still a cautious optimism, especially in the light of the child character that's present throughout.
Akiko
Mm-hmm.
must
And
protect at all costs.
yes,
Also,
and
that's like just a quick aside. Another one that actually thinks that Akiko is portrayed as might be on the spectrum. I know it might be a little bit too early to tell at that age. She kind of gives off this vibe that she might be starting to get on the spectrum.
well, at least they won't say she has like ESP or anything. but
Well, I mean, actually, now that I think about it, well, actually, I shouldn't discuss that. That's spoiler territory. But
or
let's just say, like, there's something that happens. The characters try to lie to her about something, but she still cries, knowing something's like off about that.
yeah, and then but like I said, and also there's also that vibe that you get of like survivor's guilt and post traumatic stress, like the trauma of the main lead, Koichi Shikishima. you tend to feel, especially when he has his reoccurring nightmares about being the only guy to survive. And like I said, when they're at sea, there's some moments of optimism when life is being rebuilt. He's getting good money and they're doing their job, and then all that gets dashed when you see 1945, 1946,
It's supposed to
bikini,
be 45.
the Bikini Atoll test, Castle Bravo.
Yeah, and the experience of that night where the original Godzilla like attacked and like everyone's just looking at it like do like shoot him, help us.
Yeah,
And then every time he wakes up, he always feels like, wait, no, maybe
maybe I actually did
I
die.
could help them. Maybe I actually did survive. Maybe this is all just I did actually die. Maybe this whole like uh
Dream
Noriko and Akiko is just a dream and illusion,
of a
just to
dying man
spite me
rotting.
for like failing my mission. And like here to say that like it made me actually finally think like, is this what most traumatized uh veterans go through, where they wake up and they think like the
Why was
lives that they're starting to have are just the dreams still?
why was I the one to survive when there's so many other people like me that didn't? That
Like
survivor's guilt.
I think this might be the first time I've actually seen a movie where it literally like delves into that without like spelling it out for idiots.
Yeah, and yeah, another thing too. Like I said, but it's not a completely hopeless film. After a big moment happens in the middle of the movie, a lot of people say the government can't really help us. We're isolated diplomatically because of real life bullshit with the U.S. and the Soviets. So they were on their own, but rather than just curl up and cower in fear, they decided ex soldiers, regular people, they're all gonna come together and find a way to solve this problem. And that coming together was actually quite uplifting to see in a movie with so much devastation.
Yeah, I think one of the characters themselves pointed out. Sorry, Kenji Noda.
Yeah, oh, I love Noda, Doctor, the ex Navy, the ex Navy weapon designer.
I think out of all the scientists we ever seen in Godzilla, if he was the one that was explaining things, my attention will be towards him over any other scientist.
My sister said this the whole time. The fact that he had to be out there himself in the field of danger, we kept saying, "Oh no, 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 no! Please don't blow up his boat. Please don't blow up Noda. Please don't." We were thinking that at times.
Shit, most of the time when you're watching this movie, you're always like on the edge of your seat, hoping, please don't let anything happen to this person. Please don't let anything happen to this person. Because unlike in '54, where they're most of them are scientists and they're smart enough to know to stay far away from where Godzilla might be attacking, these people are in like the moment. They don't have any say in uh, whether or not Godzilla is attacking their vicinity. Well, at least one of them could have, but he had to go to help Norika because she was in the city that was being attacked. But even then, they're always in the moment and they're like being chased by Godzilla. And you're always thinking, okay, please don't let anything happen to these. I'm actually starting to like these humans. Please don't pull a Doctor Who and say like you just build these people up just to make them cannon fodder.
Yeah, that's another thing too. A lot of reviews I've heard been talking about is that the human story is actually riveting, which is you always hear about people saying if you're in a certain type of mindset, whenever you watch a Godzilla movie, you kind of roll your eyes and want to fast forward through all the people stuff so you can get to all the monster stuff. But there's rare movies where that doesn't happen, where you want to be invested in 54, 84, like stuff like that, where you say, oh, this is actually not a bad story. But this one,
And then there's Final Wars just like, okay, fuck it, we'll make the humans and the
all
monsters
fighting
be
all the
kick
time.
ass, all fighting kick ass.
Wait, that was the funnest night when we were doing the marathon with Final Wars.
Yeah,
but
but to be fair, it was following up after
Kiryu
the
duology.
double Kiryu saga.
Yeah, so speaking, we since we touched on that, let's talk about the cast because this human cast of characters is amazing to me, which is great. We have, like it says, our lead with Koichi Shikishima, disgraced kamikaze fighter pilot, who again he lied about his plane having a problem because he couldn't really bring himself to fulfill his mission, which your mission is death if you go through with it. You either kill the enemy or you die trying. That's how it is when you're a pilot. Kamikaze actually translates to divine wind, by the way. Hmm.
Mm.
But yeah, so yeah, and then of course there was a moment when the Godzilla initially attacks in his smaller form, and they're all telling him you have a chance in your gun sights that your 20 millimeter cannon should be able to give it some oomph. But he knew if he provoked it enough, he probably might die because he's a bit of a coward and he's not afraid to admit it. And that thing, but it's not like in a oh you stupid idiot type cowardice. You actually understand why. There's a good chance if anyone else was in his position, they would probably feel the same way in the face of such a terror.
No kidding. And then, of course, when he comes back after the war's lost, and
The fire
uh,
bombings that happened to Tokyo, that was I think that was probably more devastating than nuclear bombs was the fire bombings of
at,
the
at
central
least the
city.
nukes like happen like once, and then like it was all done and over with. There's no suffering, but the fire bombings that was painful and slowly.
Yeah, and a lot of people survive and others didn't. Like characters describing their children or parents being burned alive and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, the Sumiko, Koichi's neighbor, was really laying it thick on him, saying, "Oh, this is all your fault. If you had actually done your duty, none of this would have happened."
Thankfully, you thought, oh well, this person's gonna be the bitch of this movie. She grows on you the more she sticks around. When she actually becomes sympathetic to his plight, with him taking in a girl off the street with a child that isn't even hers, a child entrusted to her by a dying mother.
And that's that's when it started to click on me. It's like, oh, so this is basically a makeshift family from these are basically a family of orphans,
Yeah,
essentially.
I know. And Noriko was interesting too. We first see her fleeing from from a vendor for stealing to survive for her and her baby, and Koichi does cover Chikishima does cover for her, which and doesn't leave the baby. Even she's surprised, like why didn't you just leave her? Something in
But
him,
I couldn't leave her in like all the state of
an
that.
awful place like that, yeah. And he even says, "Well, you're not staying," and she ends up sticking around a lot longer. And they end up building a lot together. It's funny when he ends up getting a job with the mining removal, which features Doctor Kenji Yoda and
There's
Yoji Akitsuki, the captain, who's also
uh,
an ex Navy.
uh, oh yeah, they actually do have nicknames. So their captain is called Doc, and then there's Shiro Mizushima,
Who is Kid?
who's because he never fought in a war, and of course he like, hey, wait a second, he's just, like Koichi's just as fresh as me. Why did he get kid? Because he's actually fought in a war. That's
Well, there was a line where he even says, he was just young. He says, I wish I'd gone on long enough today. And Koichi gets in his face about, don't you dare wish that war was longer. Don't you mean it? And he admits, like, I was only joking. But
it,
the kid comes through. The kid comes through in a big moment in the third act, though. I love his arc.
I would imagine that scene you're probably growing a big smile wider than anyone's beard.
I'll say this, though.
Given that it almost felt like that moment
You
in a
know,
certain
you know
franchise
what
movie.
Star Wars movie quote came to my mind exactly? Where did they get this massive fleet from?
It's not a feat, sir. It's people.
This is basically they had their Dunkirk moment. That's best way because Dunkirk was famous for being the moment when a lot of regular, seaborne fishermen were commissioned by the Navy to get their troops home from a fleeing war zone that's lost. Oh, that's another movie that just kind of has a little bit of vibes of Dunkirk, but the human story is more stronger than Dunkirk. But it gave me some of those vibes at time, man.
Actually, now I think about it, it is funny that we actually have like really been moved and grown as these humans with like the way that the pacing happened with how like they started like okay they're basically strangers to each other, then like they're like staying over the house, then they're staying at the house even longer, then the neighbor gets involved, then the neighbor's teaching her how to handle the baby, then the neighbor's looking after the baby for them while Koichi goes out to get work, then Koichi gets more money. It's like it's almost kind of like a constant series of like you know that gag where like they'll so say I'm going to do so and so today. That's I'm going to like, be gung ho about it. There's nothing else stop me. Then it cuts to them sleeping. It's wasted their day.
And then, of course, like I says, the crew he works with is very likable and affable, and then even the job makes sense. You're all like, "Oh, I get you guys
Oh
are."
yeah, me and the audience laughed when he saw the boat. Like this is built for the job.
He says, "Don't worry, it's a specially made boat to evade mines." And he sees it, and it's a boat made of wood. But when Noda,
I almost quoted another Star Wars quote. It's like,
what a
what a
piece
piece
of
of
junk!
junk!
Yeah, and then what's great is when Noda explains why, and even you're going, "Oh."
Oh,
And man, like I says, we were actually getting to around the lines of when it cuts to the Bikini Atoll test, and you go, "Oh right, this is the Godzilla movie." Then when they cut to being under the water, like being sent, you're going, "Oh shit, he was there when that happened."
uh
Yeah.
oh. I guess there's a reason why there's that quote of like he will never forgive us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, like I says, Noriko is amazing. How she starts off as a girl in over her head, taking care of this baby thrusted to her, and she actually takes on almost dutiful partner to Shikishima, even though they're not married yet. They even make a joke of it when his crew comes home and they say, "What a sweet baby and a wife you have," and he admits, "Oh, actually, we're not a thing." And then they go, "Really?" They're surprised by that, and they just found each other. Another thing too, he's still haunted by what happened, surviving the war, surviving the Odo Island attack, where Godzilla killed a bunch of the mechanics because he failed to act. Where even
Well, all but one of the pilots. Is,
yeah,
make sure you point it out.
yeah, the mechanic, one mechanic survived. The talented
Save save
Tachibana.
save for his twisted ankle.
Yeah, Tachibana actually knew him from before the war at the academy. That's why he was a little confused. Why we looked at every bit of your plan and found no trace of error. And he says, "Well, what are you trying to hint by it, huh?" And yeah, Tachibana ends up like recovering the bodies, and he blames him, saying, "Everyone's dead because you didn't do your job." He comes home. His place has been firebombed. His parents dead, even though they send a letter saying to come back alive. And Tachibana gives mails Koichi the wallet contents of all the photographs of every mechanic who died on that incident. So he does have he's haunted by that night. Every night he looks at those pictures.
Can I point out that it's weird that one of the pictures almost looks like him with the 4-year-old Akiko.
Even though that yeah, Kiko was a baby when he got those pictures, but yeah, I think yeah, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to draw a parallel to things. And oh man, by the way, fun fact: Akiko means child of light in its native language, so I can see why they gave her that name.
Well, yeah, because of course she already had the name sewn on her clothing that Rico was holding her on.
So the cast is amazing. All of them you really feel for. The major characters, everyone has a name you get to know and learn. Because one of the complaints about a movie like say Shin Godzilla was that it was more about the body unit of the eggheads working against this monster than any one individual character. Yes, Rando Yaguchi is our protagonist, but the same people you got a guy named Rando as if he's some random rando that we follow rather than a character with an arc or anything like that. I mean, the
I
characterization
mean,
of
I
Shin
mean,
Godzilla you could argue with, but
well, I mean, he is the one that's kind of questioning like, we gotta have meetings to have meetings when we have like this disaster happening, and it's probably gonna be already done and over with by the time we even finish the second meeting.
and yeah, so but these characters they have very human stories, very human wants, survives. Like Koichi explains in one of the best scenes in the movie, if you ask me, it has nothing to do with Godzilla, is when she's asking him what is up with him, why won't he let her into her world, and he confesses the whole spiel about a giant monster killed his unit. He never he never did his job as a kamikaze pilot, everything. So in his way, in his point of view, he said the war was never over for him, which leads to a emotional punchline that Derek gets to later. But yeah, this you do feel for these guys. So when they're put in the path of this monster, Another a review I watched with a bunch of casual guys who aren't the biggest Godzilla fans. They're not like they review all media, but they were talking about Godzilla. And it was so funny. These a comedian unit called Double Toasted. They were talking about how all in the other movies I'd be like, yeah, Godzilla are usually provoked or saying, yeah, I'm on your side on this. But this Godzilla is just a straight up asshole. He said he just, and they said that he does stuff where you're like, oh Godzilla, how could you say Godzilla? How could you?
Like so, like you're kind of on a level. It's like okay, yeah, this is typical Godzilla activities. Like, well, actually, no. In the context of the movie, he's out ripping down ships left and right on his trail to lead up to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Like before our main cast has to like stall him to get like the big ship to go after him.
Oh man, that scene.
That was that was basically like, okay, what if we did Jaws, but with a kaiju?
And with a kaiju that eats bombs for breakfast.
But it turns out maybe he shouldn't do that because his insides are actually vulnerable.
But yeah, but when we saw that
So this,
moment happen,
like,
when
I was gonna say, so I guess this would be the one time that uh, Drax the Destroyer would actually be right in his method.
the inside is softest part, he said, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because there's a moment where Godzilla. Okay, so I think we're all into spoilers at this point. When Godzilla has a mine in his mouth and they shoot it, thinking they could like get this monster out, and he has a chunk of his cheek and forehead missing, but then you just see that shit bubble back in real
Which
time.
which I was the only one that thought that they filled and animated that regeneration almost as if it was like one of those stop motion uh, things, like almost kind of like a Harryhausen deal.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like, good, you actually saw that. I was hoping I wasn't the only one that was getting crazy seeing that. But yeah, that regeneration was pretty fucking quick.
And like it says, we pretty much done like a big at that one too because we didn't like we knew he regenerates, but to see it on that scale in this movie,
And you thought Wolverine healed fast. Shit, I don't even think Deadpool heals as fast as Godzilla did in that moment.
yeah. And oh my gosh, that was a moment where if your sphincter was clenched, it would have loosened for an immediate bowel evacuation just seeing that happen right in front of you.
But then, of course, the big ship does arrive, and of course, you see Godzilla doing his best. He's like pulling it, tugging it. Of course, the ship shoots it down to the ocean, and then, of course, you get a little bit of hit of the iconic atomic breath, or as they call it in this movie, the heat ray.
And oh man, remember that scene in Godzilla versus Kong where Kong gets knocks Godzilla off the boat, but then he says, "Oh, you're being cute, huh?" And he just shoots upward to like John McClane that shit. That happens in this one, yeah, but in a much more devastating way. Hell, and I loved it when he practically goes up to the battleship and they shoot those cannons into his side, and you think, "Oh, maybe they got him," and then the boom happens.
Oh, gee.
But that's
Actually, I guess we should talk about more about Godzilla himself because that's what we're all here for, right? Want to see the big monster that's been around for 70 plus years, and so obviously this isn't a suit. This is clearly CG. To be fair, the CG isn't as distracting as most people would think it would be. In fact, it seems a little. It seems like the thing's alive almost.
the thing is that Yamakashi not only wrote and directed this movie, he was also the lead on the visual effects, and he consulted a lot of great people, including Shinji Higuchi, who did Shin Godzilla and GMK. So he supervised this personally to make sure it was integrated. In fact, here's the real kicker: this movie's total budget only cost $15 million.
What?
That's even less than The Creator, which was also a cheap movie, and that's definitely less than any major movie like Oppenheimer or any Marvel movie. It only cost 15 to make.
And Godzilla still looked that good, where like he had movable scales and the way his feet like went about and stomped the streets, and oh my god, the heat ray buildup.
Oh man, yeah. If you thought the Shin Godzilla scene was something, boy, you ain't seen nothing yet.
So I feel like the effect of this is almost the same effect it felt like when Force Awakens did the lightsaber igniting, and you felt like the oomph of it. You definitely feel the oomph 10 times bigger when Godzilla fires out the heat ray, which we actually figured out it's probably a little bit harmful for him to do that. It's almost like a last moment whichever, which is definitely a 180 over most of the Godzilla movies we've seen. Mostly the Heisei and the Millennium stuff, where Godzilla will spam attack that bullshit.
Oh my goodness, especially the Heisei era.
It's like fireball, fireball, fireball.
I'm a firing my lasers. Like, but yeah, but this one, yeah, and when he uses it, it's like I said, it has punch. Like even the build up has punch.
And the force, the action of him like lurching his body forward to fire it out, it definitely has was punched because it's such it's like it's not like one continuous beam going off. It's like basically it's an organic nuke. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like he fires it, it impacts, and it sets off a mushroom cloud.
Yeah, and oh man, and like I said, and the force it leaves, it just boom like. So you remember how we mentioned how I think we should probably talk about the one central piece in the movie that's in all the advertising, and that is the raid on Ginza, the Ginza district. It had just been
Yeah.
rebuilt, and we hear about how great it is. So when they say Godzilla is heading his way towards Ginza, and we find out Noriko works there, we're like,
Oh
oh.
God.
And then, oh my god, the moment when the train stops because Godzilla threw another big rubble and it landed right in front of the train and caused it to crash. And
Oh, he
Noriko
threw a train at a train for God's sakes.
looks out the window and sees what
Koichi
Kishima
described
described,
to her.
and then they play the full on classic Godzilla theme at that point, and
Actually,
not the heroic 3 note theme, not the bum bum bum, but the more scarier march that bum 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 that one,
yeah. Actually, the soundtrack to this has 3 Godzilla scenes to them.
which all have
What?
the classic Ifukube themes to them.
Yeah. Although one of them did sneak in the King Kong chant from King Kong vs. Godzilla.
Which that actually happened in the end credits of Godzilla vs. Destroyer, where it is the full-on classic theme, but Ifukube must have been so proud of the Faroe Island chant, he put it as part of that. So if you watch like the montages from Godzilla vs. Destroyer, that's where that track comes from.
Yeah, but we all know where that originally came from. So no, we see it
He
being
he loves to
slightly
reuse
mentioning the big monkey.
he loves to reuse a lot of his themes. Well, when he was alive, he passed away after making Godzilla vs. Destroyer, but yeah. Yeah, but this one, like, it doesn't rely heavily on the classic soundtracks, but it sprinkles them where they're needed, which is great.
I did love the second rendition of the Godzilla suite. I think they were using it when they were implementing their plan of attack to get Godzilla like out of their hair.
Yeah, that was a great
Essentially,
moment, dude. Like, I was
I think,
slapping.
yeah, it definitely felt like it was taking it back to. Okay, so most people don't know this. The Godzilla theme that we know, like the ba 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 ba
Yeah,
ba, that was actually meant for the theme to be for the military, the
and
humans.
it kind of just became his theme over time.
I mean, the movie did open with it, so
And hell, like, people say that the bum bum bum, it's actually saying Gojira, Gojira, la dan 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 Gojira, but yeah.
the
So, there's actually an Evangelion versus Shin Godzilla concert that was aired live, and it ends with the Godzilla theme being interposed with the Cruel Angel's Thesis song. and they're chanting Godzilla, Godzilla when she's doing the Shini Mari Nare from Evangelion. It was an amazing concert.
But yeah, the Godzilla Suite 2, as it's called in the soundtrack, was definitely like knee slapper, as Jonesy was putting it.
I was doing that. I was like just going on with. I was just like telling them, "Come on, get him!" While that song was playing and everything.
Yeah, basically like the humans finally took the theme back for themselves in that moment.
Although
And
people
I
will
thought that was,
say they
I,
did it in King of the Monsters too when they do the Forza Herazawa moment.
yeah, but it was mostly for Godzilla being powered up again.
Oh god, that moment though, yeah. So, but it's so funny. In fact, that's funny that this movie also makes you want them to get Godzilla. Most of the time you're all like, no, leave him be, no, or you can't do nothing against him. But this one you're all like, no, you bring that sucker down.
And to be fair, the plan that they come up with, taking Godzilla down, it is actually pretty ingenious.
It's the
And
most realistic plan I've ever heard in any of the movies. I'll be honest right here.
they didn't pull out an oxygen destroyer out their ass. But yeah, it was. I think it was almost kind of like bringing back the '84, where they're luring Godzilla out to fall down into a volcano. But obviously, they didn't have a open volcano for them to lead over, or even have the resources to do that. So essentially, their plan was essentially to sink Godzilla down rapidly down to the depths where pressure is going to get him, and if it felt like it wasn't affected that much, they would re-inflate rafts with the same devices to launch him back up to the surface. So
So
the
decompression,
decompression would just like cause the body to just like have like a failing.
because yeah, as you all know, you're never supposed to rise up fast from the ocean really fast, or decompression will cause bad things to happen to you.
I wonder if that's the mindset why the '98 and the Millennium Godzillas have like the slow rise from the sea.
Well, like when you go from a depth of crushing pressure to none, the air will like it's a like I said, it's quite an interesting thing, and we all know what compression can do, to tin cans and stuff. So, uh,
Ooh, too soon.
no, I wasn't
Uh,
making that illusion, but yeah, um, the but yeah, this was an ingenious plan that actually made you'd buy it working, and
no, let's rephrase that. You want it to work, especially given what Godzilla did to Ginza and to um.
oh god, let's talk about this moment. So the scene that's in the trailers is great is when he starts the tanks start firing at him, and he starts like, oh, Noriko was in peril the entire time. She was on the train. Godzilla bites that you see him bite in all the advertising. She's hanging off of it by a thread.
It is like, oh god, you like get her close to something, get her something soft to the
The
air. She's
water.
over water. It's like good enough. She might like feel like her shins are gonna get crushed a bit from the impact, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah, and then of course she's kind of shell shocked, walking amongst the crowd, running for their lives as Godzilla's just stomping things, and then of course Koichi grabs her.
You know, guy, when Godzilla stopped around, you can clearly see people being crushed under each foot as they
Or
stomp down.
if not the feet, but the rubble kicked up by the feet also smashes people.
Oh yeah, they actually filmed this Godzilla to be so powerful. Like I think we haven't seen that since '84, where like his footsteps would be so powerful enough that they will crush the street to cause uh, sinkage, or literally the streets will just jump up out because the weight is too much for it.
And then, oh my goodness, the moment when those news reporters, this scene always messed with me in 54, where those guys are recording their last moments as Godzilla approaches them, and they're still doing their job of reporting, man. And then he
They
bites
have
the.
to. Like what else? I mean, they have to. Like as one of the Blair Witch Project cast said, "It's all I have left."
And then when he bites the tower and they're saying goodbye, goodbye, and then he pulls it aside, and the whole tower, you see them fall out of the
Well,
tower while they
oh,
scream and they hit the ground. We get
those
something just like that in this one.
yeah. I think you could also kind of see them like falling up until they cut away before they impact because
So you could,
I think they had enough tact to not show the disgustingness of it.
yeah, not, we don't want to see them be street pizza. But yeah, that moment in '54 was recreated lovingly with this moment when they're describing the Great Ginza Theater being destroyed. It survived the fire bombings, but not this thing. And then they say, "I think it sees it. I could see its head passing over me." And then his tail hits him, and then they just like, yeah, it is just you're like, I don't know who those men were, but I feel bad for their death.
No kidding. And of course, Koichi shows up, getting Noriko out, but then of course the tanks start to fire at him, and it pisses Godzilla enough. They like, all right, I really didn't want to use this, but I have no choice to just, like cause his body to pop his spines out, which I think the director said is supposed to be referencing how the radiation like rods are like
Oh yeah, in a reactor
slammed
core.
down for a reactor core. Yeah,
Oh, that's clever. And then
and
he shoots at the tanks, blowing up the Diet building, the building that was there. And then the resulting shockwave just the poor bystanders, they had nowhere to go. They were just watching as their impending end came. And Noriko had the sense to push Akishima into an alleyway before being caught up in the blast. And we're like, I think there were a couple of gasps, and even someone yelled out "no" when she was caught
um,
in it.
I I I actually shouted down in my theater when she got swept up in that. I was like, we just got her safe from the fucking train, man. If you wanted to kill her, why not just do it on the train and instead of having us go through the heartbreak of having Koichi see her gone in that like dust in the wind.
Yeah, and then of course, one thing I loved is that Godzilla seemed to roar enraged at the cloud left from his thing, almost like if he's still pissed off about the atomic bomb.
And of course, in response, Koichi yells at Godzilla when he's on his knees, realizing he's lost, and I had no idea what's raining down. I really hope that's not blood. Is that supposed to like maybe like sewage or
It
oil?
looks like oil to me.
I hope it's oil. I really don't
If
want to
it
imagine this.
if it is blood, then this really is a hardcore Godzilla movie. It is PG-13, I might add.
I mean, it did see like a little bit black, so well, but then again, the uh, sunlight was being blotted out by the mushroom cloud. So how do we know it's not?
Maybe it's acid rain. I don't know. But point is, that moment was again haunting, very haunting. Probably just as haunting as the Who Will Know sequence from Shin Godzilla.
Speaking of the soundtrack, so we do have the iconic Godzilla suite. We have also like original soundtracks. One of them did actually stick out at me called Resolution, which if you actually look around, I think it's like the first TV advert they put out for Godzilla. That one showed way more footage before the second trailer came out.
Oh, that actually that the song you're thinking of is Divinity. That's when he blows up the Takao boat, the battleship, and that's the
No,
one with
no,
that.
no. I listened to Resolution. It's like the.
Oh yeah, that's the second one. Yeah, the Divinity was the one that played for the teaser, the one with the that monster will never forgive us. You're a disgrace, and they're all dead, and the tension is just growing with each string.
You know, they call it the Godzilla versus trailer. I mean, app TV spot.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that one too. But oh my gosh, that was a good track. I mean, a lot of the tracks are almost Silent Hill-ish, almost a little scary with the tension and everything. And
I'm pretty sure that was the intention.
oh yeah, especially when those damn fish with the bloated gill sacks, the dead fish
Oh
start
yeah,
surfacing.
those fucking things. Every time they pop out, I was go like, are those supposed to be like upside down bowling pins, or are those deep fish?
I think the idea is that Godzilla's so massive, he disrupts the currents with the fish, and they end up getting swept into higher pressures, and they decompress. That's why their inner guts
Oh,
basically swell out. That's why they have those bulbs coming out of their mouth and everything.
oh, that's how uh, Noda gets the idea to do that to Godzilla.
Yeah, cause yeah, these are deep sea fish. When he was small, only a few little fish came up. When he got big, you saw bigger fish like floating up into the thing. So I think that's the impression I got from the weird fish floating that way. Because when fish die, they do float in the surface.
Yeah, but man, the more we talk about this movie, the more I realize like, no, yeah, no question, this movie is better than the '54 movie. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of people saying, oh, yeah, the '54 is iconic. It was innovative. It did things like the other monster movies would try to recapture the zeitgeist of. And I'm just saying, like, yes, it did, but it, it's the amount of story for the human characters, it's kind of a little bit light on that for '54. Like, sure, there's scientists that are explaining what the hell it is, trying to figure out how to deal with it, and Japan's response to what they should do about making the thing go public or keeping it a secret, especially when that choice is literally thrown out of their control when Godzilla makes landfall, anyways.
By the way, that was a funny moment in this movie to me. Was when Akitsuku, the captain, basically grumpily says that information control is one of the government's specialties in Japan. And I'm like, you know, that's actually not too far off. They always good about keeping a lid on shit until it's unable to be kept a lid on.
Yeah.
Oh, and another track that's very, you know, again, Divinity's pretty good. The one that plays when they finally get the bastard is done, and of course all the classic Godzilla music really leaves an impression as well. But recorded in the best ways I've ever heard and recorded.
Like, they actually feel like they have power. They're not like
Just putting a
coast,
CD of the yeah.
they're not coast enough, but like, yeah, you know what this theme is. This is here. You know what you're in for, so you're hearing it now. No, this was like, you remember this song? Yeah, we have painstakingly made sure that we're gonna get a bigger symphony to play this thing.
Especially when the humans start firing back. So another thing too to mention is another inspiring scene is when they're pointing out they're pointing out that you know, no government can help them. The current one is like in shambles about what to do with Ginza. You can't expect any outside help because again, the Red Scare was causing a lot of crap for people. And people are saying, "Wow, for once America decides not to stick its nose into this one." Although technically it was their fault for instigating the whole thing anyway with the Bikini Atoll test, but
Whoops.
yeah. But the moment when they're all in a meeting and they're explaining their plan and they say we're all ex Navy, but there's no shame and if you don't want to because one guy says, "But I have a family," and then they're saying, "Hey, if you decide to leave, there's no shame in it. You're not ordered to do this. This is
We're,
own free
we're
will."
just simply we are just asking for help, but you are free to go on your own free will. And of course, it's like there's at least about like 15 people that leave. The rest of them still stay, and it's still a sizable amount. Let's just say.
And I love the bit when Noda is describing how maybe because they're saying what are the chances there's going to be sacrifice? You know, we prepare in case we should die, and he says, "Hey, we've actually been a little cavalier about life. You know, crappy armor, poor resource management that leads to starvations, pilots with no ejector seats. You know, how about this time we go for a future worth living for rather than dying for a nation? What about living for a future?" One of the most inspiring moments in the movie to me, if you ask me.
It almost kind of reminds me of that other line spoken in that franchise we keep talking about. Like, the only way we're going to win is not by fighting what we hate, but we saving what we love.
Yes, yes. Well,
I have no idea why Star Wars is on my mind lately. It's weird.
yeah,
Anyways,
it's always been a December thing for you. That or Lord of the Rings.
well, it flip flops.
Yeah. For me, it's a little bit. I'm thinking of another faraway planet in outer space that I have to wait a decade before it finishes. Jimmy Boy.
It's not really going to take that long again, is it?
I mean, for every sequel to be, you know, every sequel to be done. The fifth movie should be done by the time I'm 41.
Oh God.
Yeah, but anyway, the point is though, the speech was amazing. I mean, you really feeling for these guys, and Shikishima is scaring us with his whole now that his love is gone, and he starts leaving her with the auntie with money and everything, saying to like use it for her. You're like, oh crap, he's not intending to come back.
Yeah, so they're thinking that they're probably going to need something to distract Godzilla while they're implementing their boat plan, because there's no way that Godzilla's just going to still let them do that.
Yeah, the
So
plan they
they
say is I love it. You can say the nostalgia critic joke for this. Their plan is to use canisters filled with bubbles.
fucking bubbles.
Yeah, but Freon bubbles that would stop his contact from the sea and make him sink like a rock. And then using balloons to put him up to the surface to decompress him. So again, that's a very clever plan.
But Koichi is adamant to ask Noda if this will actually kill Godzilla.
And he has no guarantees. No guarantees at all.
So then Koichi decides, like, you know what? Noda's implemented his plan A and plan B. I'm just gonna make a plan. Fuck it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you did. It's just like, okay, I think I could help out by distracting Godzilla with a plane, but of course most of the planes are decommissioned, except for this one tailless edition,
The experimental craft, it's a Kyushu J7W Shinden fighter.
which I'm just gonna put it out. Look at it. It's made me think of like those Hydra like missile launchers we saw in Captain America: First Avenger.
Yeah, it was meant to be a highly maneuverable interceptor, but it was it only came out near the end of the war and really didn't see much combat. But yeah, but the propellers on the back and the nose is where all the payload and everything is.
And so Koichi gets the mechanic that we saw. That's
Tachibana.
the only other. That's the only other survivor of the Oda Island
Oh, he's
incident.
still pissed off about it because the letters accused him of being responsible for the massacre. He said, "I knew if I
Well,
made you."
what else was he gonna do? He couldn't like find his address. He was clearly making himself hard to find.
So he says, "I knew you'd come after me if I made you angry."
So we're just going free on with the spoilers
Let's
stuff.
talk about the feels, like you mentioned, the feels. There's a lot of it with mostly with Akiko, I might add.
But anytime Akiko shows up, you oh my god. The first time she calls Koichi daddy, I could hear most of the females in the audience go, "Oh," and I beamed a little bit. It's like, and of course, Koichi had to be a spoiled for to say, "Akiko, I told you, I'm not your father."
Oh, and then the mama that happens later after the post Ginza attack.
Yeah, remember in '54 where you had that heartbreak and seeing that little girl watching her mother get uh, covered up because she was like at the point of no return, and she just curled up in, oh my god, what was her name? The main lead of that '54,
Emiko.
Emiko's arms, and just started crying out,
Oh my goodness, that moment will always stick with me. It looked a lot like that when she was crying in her auntie's arms for that.
"This sick bastards, man, has to find a way to make it even hit harder because now we actually have a name for both the child and the mother
And then
figure."
of course, and other moments it feels are like I said, Koichi confessing to Noriko that war he never really left, or when he has his breakdowns of, is this the dream? Are you guys? Am I still on that island being trampled? Like all that stuff just hits you, man.
And anytime Godzilla shows up, you actually do like have the sense of dread and fear. Not in the same way wherever you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna be so excited just to feel like this terror dread. Like, no, when Godzilla shows up, you like you feel like your backbone like size up and just your skin coil and goosebumps seeing that he's there and he's like intently going after the cast you're starting to warm up to.
Hell, even on the boat scene when they're all they have is that dinky little wooden boat and a 15 caliber machine gun that's made for blowing up
And at least
mines.
and at least two mines they recovered.
And they have a partner boat, and that boat just got swallowed up like nothing.
Oh my god!
Oh, that was horrifying to see. And then he's just swimming at them, man.
Again, as I pointed out, it looks like Jaws, but with the kaiju dragon essentially.
How's that funny line go about? He's gonna have a heart attack when I show what they got him. What Quint said.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Well, we saw that for sure, but the other one, he's like, he's gonna have himself a heart attack when he sees what I brought him. Oh, Quint would definitely go after Godzilla, I think,
I think
for the
you,
a
you, you
huge
probably
price.
hear you probably hear about the big lizard and think, okay, probably be like a overgrown, like almost the size of like a Russian bear, a black bear. But then as soon as he pops up, he's like, oh, oh, he. No, it would be the same reaction that Doc had. Like, okay, maybe not.
Oh, I like how Doc is like, why do we gotta wait for the boat, man? And then we could take this monster down, and then he sees it eat the
The
partner
boat
boat.
like gets swallowed down, and it's like,
We
maybe
got
then again, maybe not.
we gotta wait for the Takao to show up, and I like how you're thinking, yeah, when the battleship shows up, but then Godzilla just tears into it. He's like pulling the cannons away from it. The men are like desperately shooting at him, and then they think they got him, and then he nukes it to nothing. You're like, hell, there's even dread with him just finding the remains of the boats that the Americans sent him to find out what even did this.
It
It's,
also feels reminiscent of a certain a lot of fish movie.
okay, that's
Although
for,
to be fair, this thing is still like on the ocean.
but man, but like I said, but there's one moment, probably one moment that gives all the feels in the world, man, is where there's a couple when you think that Shikishima is intent on the suicide mission, and you're like, you're like the crew. They're saying, "Don't do this," because they can see him. And I love it when the cut when Doc tells him, "You better not make that kid an orphan."
I'm so glad that I like pay attention to certain scenes in movies because if I hadn't paid attention to the fact that the movie cut away from Tachibana talking to Koichi about like where like all the armaments in that plane were, and noticing that he's still whispering to him about certain things, I probably would have had a much more bleaker emotion whenever Koichi was going to implement his plan to like stick it to Godzilla, which was pretty much what was needed to hit the final blow, and Godzilla's ready to just blow all of our guys. Just literally like decompressed him to like almost blithering, bubbling, like brewing blah of nothing.
Yeah, but
And he's
what's
like,
what
all right, fuck it, I'm gonna blow you all up, point blank. King of Kong ain't got shit on
what's
me.
funny is that the whole theater went silent. I like how everybody they're taking off their hats, they're closing their eyes, they're praying, they're just ready to make peace with their maker at that exact moment. And then you hear the airplane come in, and then he flies right to Godzilla's mouth.
And then you hear Nona say, "Wait, look at there!" And like I had a hope, inkling feeling that this would probably be the best case scenario. And oh my god, I feel like my heart like bobbing down back from being clenched up in my throat.
Yeah, because there was a moment where before the Tachibana and his crew work a miracle of getting the pile of junk to fly, he mentioned that he did the modification specifically what Koichi wanted to get a bigger bomb to use the safety for the bomb, a one way trip thing basically. And then he told him something in secret that we don't know about yet. So when he hits Godzilla, and blows off the top of his head, man, with the bomb. You're thinking, oh no, Koichi went with him, and like I said, there's a lot of foreshadowing, like we know, like him leaving the money with his neighbor to take care of Akiko, him, you're not responding to hails when they say, remember, you're just luring this guy, don't you die out there on us. And then you think, oh god, he's done it. And then they see his parachute, man.
And oh,
Then you cut
oh
back to
my
the
god.
flashback where Tachibana explains, here is the ejector seat button. You press that when you pull this. And he just tells him one order, live.
Live.
And when he hears that he survived in the radio, Tachibana just breaks into a dumb smile and starts crying a little.
And then everybody saluted him
Yeah,
as Godzilla crumbled away to nothingness.
because he's so messed up from the decompression and everything, and his laser beam has nowhere to go. That it just kind of just withered him away.
I did have a little bit of a fear that we were gonna have like, oh my god, are we gonna have a Death Star thing where like it's just gonna blow up in their faces?
Nope, he just
But
thinks.
no, it leaks out. It's fine.
But oh man, here's where the big emotional gut punch. Because he's ready to die because he has nothing to live for. But before the big mission happens, Aunt Saoko gets a
A
telegram.
telegram.
So when she catches up with Chikishima, she calls him a complete idiot. You know.
So I I don't know if you heard me because you were handling it with your cat, but I am so glad that I have the ability to pay attention to movies even first go to know like if there's like a certain detail like going on where it's not really obvious to everybody, but it's obviously a clue to something later. Like where we saw that cutaway with Tachibana still talking with Koichi, but we can't hear what he's talking about, and then the neighbor getting a telegram. I, I always kept holding on to like the best case scenario of what this was meaning, and I was right for both parts. Where Koichi uh, returns to like a hospital, and oh my god, Norika, she's still there. She's worse for wear, but she's still alive, and she looks to Koichi and just simply says, "Is your war truly over now?"
he just breaks down
And
into a mess.
and he just breaks down, embracing her almost to say, "I'm sorry, I didn't like consider you my wife and my love, but you definitely are, and I'm never gonna let go of this ever again." Oh my god,
Because there was a
I
moment
I I had to like just say, okay, screw this, and take my glasses off because I know I just need to let this go right now.
and they said that even before the final mission, there's a part where a drunk doc gets mad at Koichi, telling him how Shikishima about how, why didn't you take her as your wife when you had a chance? You knew how she felt, and he admitted he couldn't because he still had a personal demons to take care of. And that, yeah, so but the fact that, yeah.
I think it was solely more of Akiko was uh, in that embrace too.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there is a little thing where you see a bit of scarring, radiation scarring on Noriko's neck, to say that, it did affect her, but she's still, Shikishima has her. That's all that matters, man. That's it's, I kept
Oh,
saying.
I was wondering what that was. I thought that was like a tattoo for indicate that she also did something that haunted her.
No, that was some type of radiation sickness that said on the thing. But here's the thing. Uh, oh, also before the mission, Akiko gives him a drawing of the three of them, and of course he's flying with the photograph of Noriko on his thing. So you're thinking, oh yeah, he's totally willing to
Go
go,
down.
yeah, because be what he's supposed to be. Because all the time they're giving him crap for being a failed kamikaze pilot, being too scared to die for them.
And is most movies like to portray kamikazes do tend to have like photos of people that they do these one way missions for, as if it's like the last comforting thing they look at before they go out in a blaze of glory.
Like hell, I mean, Godzilla Raids Again had an accidental kamikaze pilot. That was sad when that happened, though. Even you were like, I know I was in and out of this movie, but oh no, that actually was unfortunate when that happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, the it was funny as we think, okay, all is well and everything, but of course we have to cut to the water where a chunk of Godzilla is still sinking, but it starts to do that bubbly thing for the regeneration as
And,
the Godzilla theme booms. I thought very GMK in the way it ended.
and of course, the audience reacted positively to that. I would be lying if I didn't like smirk at that a little bit too. It's like, ugh, you son of a bitch! You always find a way to get out of this, don't
And
you?
and the directors did say it was not really meant to be a setup for a sequel. He just said that I have his quote right here. He said when they asked him about that for the future of the franchise, it said he says that I think it's more cinematic if it doesn't end neatly and properly. It's not just so a sequel can be made, it's also so the characters are kept alive in the hearts of the audience. On the film's opening day, Yamakasi also indicated his desire to make another film, saying, I wonder if you'll let me shoot one more picture, he said to Toho.
I would be down for it, and I'm pretty sure Toho would definitely welcome him to try that.
And then,
Oh,
we,
my audience literally clapped and applauded when the G minus one title finally dropped, indicating the credits to start rolling. And most of us sat through the credits, and then, of course we had that experience in the IMAX, where we got to experience the booms. And at first it's like, oh, it's cute. That's like it's the impending booms, just like in the 54. And then they got louder and louder, almost like, oh shit, is Godzilla literally gonna burst through our screen right now and stomp us right now?
it's
And,
great.
and
But
then it gets that one big, humongous, classic leather glove against a cello roar.
and here's the thing. I saw that -1 not only means the whole -1 of the country, but also the movie before 54, and the way that it ends is how 54 opens: stomp, 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 and then roar. Which
And
also
then
that's how
the
Shin Godzilla
audience,
opened up.
and then of course the audience applauds too.
But
But it is kind of interesting that the director kind of intended almost that to be like, oh, this predates the original one, which I would have a lot of questions too if he was being serious about that. But I'm sure it's just a loving, endearing tribute to it.
like, can you imagine if he does a follow up to it, and it's straight up a retelling of 54, but with different routes and possible like the Resident Evil remake versus original Resident Evil with
Oh,
this
okay.
Godzilla.
Oh my god, could you imagine the Imiko and Sarazawa like plot line with that one?
Oh God, you'd be even more invested, man.
I would probably be a balling mess if like they still stuck with the
Oh, by the time Sarazawa
Sarazawa
has to
thing,
die.
but it's still like but they film it and execute it off in a more like it'll feel like you just got a fatality gut punch.
And okay, so we did mention this. The fan screening I got to see was in IMAX, thank God. Because in Japan it was released in IMAX. And your screening was in IMAX too, I believe. Oh no, not IMAX, but the Dolby Cinema.
Nope, it was actually IMAX. They actually did have an IMAX straight up IMAX theater. It was right next to the Dolby Cinema.
But oh man, like the size really does work, but the sound, even Yamakaze gave Takeshi gave a personal message today on release day saying that he always intended to have a dread and feel, and you get that dread fully with the theatrical experience, with the sound system and everything. And it's the sounds, his stomps and his roars are just terrifying.
Yeah, I know like most people don't like to have like the front seats. I actually am like glad that I ended up getting that by like out of necessity in the end, but like it kind of makes sense that you want to have the experience of seeing like this gigantic screen that has Godzilla on it, like looming over you.
And there's a lot of low angle shots too. Uh, So like, so you
So
he really does
so
feel like
most
he's big.
it would actually feel like it. That is literally how Godzilla would look like if I was like right there at the moment.
On top of that, I love the fact that he's still at a meter where he can interact with people, being a little under. He's only a few meters taller than the '54 Godzilla. So that would make him, of course, shorter than the MonsterVerse Godzilla or Shin Godzilla, but still, a lot of the directors love making him at least 50 meters because he can at least interact with people on a more personal level. Like that's what they said in Godzilla 2000. That's what led to that iconic Katagiri scene. But this, like it says, him at this size, he's hell, maybe smaller. No, according to '98, maybe size does matter. But in this case, the size that's a little more smaller tends to be the one that like instills terror. I mean, because we've seen him when he's super huge, like the whole.
Godzilla Earth thing.
We gotta admit though, it was scary that when even swinging his tail led to like a big, shockwave that shattered ships. That was pretty terrifying. And hell, and Shin Godzilla was huge. I mean, one scene that still leads to awe-inspiring moments is when he's arriving back in Tokyo and you see that tail just do a panning shot over the city, and you're like, "Holy crap!" And of course, that leads to Derek's
I,
joke.
I still say that tail is the freaking mastermind of all this. The beast is just a puppet. Hell, they even spell it out for you, consider the fact that it ends with literally like the tail showing its true uh power. Like even though it was encased like uh whatever that freezing coagulant stuff that they use onto him.
It has like a grinning skull face with all these mini Godzilla people hopping off of it.
The tail is evil. God damn it!
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, the size, but like I said, with the booming and the roaring, it's like I said, just that scene on the island, the Odo Island massacre, was terrifying in IMAX, man. Like you're feeling.
That 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 thing came out of nowhere, and I was expecting to see that type of violence as Godzilla, but hey, okay.
Yeah, and did you have a lot of fans at your screening that way you can tell they were fans?
I can definitely hear a lot of people laughing at certain things with Doc or kids jokes.
Oh, but I love that when.
I heard there were a lot of guests. I actually definitely could hear people crying whenever Koichi reunited with Noriko.
Also, I forgot to mention this during our thing, but oh man, it was great when Kid, but they keep telling him, you gotta stay behind, man. You gotta live for the future because he says to be not in a war is something to be proud of. And later, when they say we have not enough thrust to haul him because he popped the balloons and he will not come up, and then
Oh my god, what was the line that kid said that just like that smile like cracked my
because he
uh
said during the bar before the attack, he said, "Wait, what if we hauled two destroyers to him and pull him out of the water if he won't come up?" And then he said he weighs over 20,000 tons. The destroyer doesn't have enough thrust for that. They said so when he brought back a bunch of boats and all those boats just started pulling
no, what was that line? He said that the useless are
are useful. Yeah. Oh god. I wish I had
got it.
that line
It was a
saved,
powerful line. Why we had to forget that?
but it was a great
Oh,
line. He was
I guess our minds were still preoccupied. Like, no, Koichi, no, you have so much to live for.
Yeah, but that moment was inspiring too, and like I said, that calls back to the Star Wars fleet scene from Rise of Skywalker. But oh man, the IMAX experience, yeah, like I said, just the screen and the sound. Was that's what really made this movie work. But just as effective as the sound is the lack of sound. Like whenever things were just dead quiet for a moment, like the moment before he shoots his beam, the moment before Koichi saves him in the end, the moment when he's having a moment with Noriko, just confessing everything. Those quiet moments were just as effective as the bombastic cues and everything.
Verily.
But yeah, so in your point of view, by far one of the best Godzilla movies, probably like on either side of the Pacific.
It, it trounces anything ever done, or probably will ever be done, unless someone really is intent with pulling off like the impossible. Because as I pointed out, 54 is good. It's like groundbreaking. It still has like this feeling almost kind of the same way that the original King Kong has,
GMK is
where it's got like
considered the high
where it's
mark
like
of the millennium.
it's got the yeah where it's got the mood and the look and the atmosphere to it. Minus One has that, but it also has like a gripping human story. So you're not only caring for what Godzilla does that he's been best known for 70 years, you actually fear seeing him doing that, as it should have been from the get go.
On top of
And you're also being moved by the human characters and don't see them as cannon fodder. Hell, you wish they weren't cannon fodder. You're hoping that they don't turn out to be cannon fodder.
Also, when they all survived that battle, I mean, other than Godzilla, I had to quote the doctor from that famous, the ninth doctor from that famous episode.
Everybody lives, justice once, everybody lives.
It's just true. Well, like I said,
Not really, considering the fact that we've seen certain boats being blown up in the lead up to this one, but basically most of the main characters that we know.
and here's the best thing: this movie didn't need to take 3 hours to make us care for everybody. I mean, I'm not taking a crack at Peter there, but I love his Kong movie. But this movie did it in 2 hours.
I still have more penchant feeling for Peter Jackson one, but mostly because that was my first one.
No, I'm not saying anything bad against it. I'm just saying it's kind of funny how if I can compare if 54 is Kong 33, then minus one is definitely up there for me, like Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Where it's honoring where it's a period piece. It's honoring its legacy, but it also gives characters that you feel and care for because they're fleshed out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And so even though it's considered all absolutely the best, is there any little things you would change about this if you could, or none that you can think of at the moment?
Well, I did point out that I feel like Akiko should have been in that group embrace in the hospital reuniting with Noriko.
It's probably like when Chewie walked past Leia in Episode 7.
And let's see.
But okay, not me.
I
Yeah,
I feel like we could have had a little bit more with. Well, I think that the kids attack is like perfectly done as it is, but I don't know. The trailers kind of like alluded me to thinking that we were going to see a little about just as if not as much as like when 54 made landfall and attacked in Tokyo.
but yeah, might have been a little too self-indulgent if it did do a lot of that.
Right, because again, it would have taken away from the whole like human aspect we've been following.
Yeah, I don't know if I would change much about it myself, but um, I think I
I
should have. I would have had a scene of them inspecting the fish, deep sea fish, to see like what killed them exactly.
right, and of course that would have led to uh, Noda coming up with the idea to stop Godzilla on a grand scale.
Oh, also, dude, I loved it when their boats had to like go past each other in order to make that loop to wrap around Godzilla, and they knew they're going to get some damage.
Yeah,
Oh, and another thing, I I think that again, this is a well-made Godzilla film. Probably when Stuckman, he made a review of it today, and he said that this movie was probably the Godzilla movie he didn't know he wanted, and he said that remembering that one of his favorite movies in the franchise was Godzilla 2014, but he said that that whole opening scene with Joe Brody and his wife, that this movie was a whole movie of that type of feeling from that moment in 2014, which many people cite as one of the best moments in that movie.
yep.
And yeah, just well balance of human and monster. Um, I've heard some
Even though
outright.
even though Godzilla had nothing to do with that entire moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think in minus one there is a lot of good balance of the human story, of the monster story, the visuals. They draw you in. You're both they're both beautiful and terrifying. Godzilla himself is just, you know, I okay. I'll confess, I managed from Japan to secure the SH Monster Arts version because it's already released over there. It won't release it on Amazon until February, but it might take a while to get here. But I got myself a pretty penny for that one, but still, hey, it's my Christmas gift to me. Is the SH minus one Goji, but it is a great design. It's noble like the Heisei era, but also scarred like 54. It's got the crazy ass spines like 2000. It just and it's the face has a sense of fury and malice, but not in like the dead eyes of GMK or the fury eyes of Final Wars. It's just there's something behind that face. Like
Another thing, they say that the eyes are probably the most liquid that Godzilla has ever seen, but you can literally, even as you're looking at them, you know, say, this shit is giving me looks, like, and I don't like it.
it's looking at you like yeah, like you're right because the, the nature of the other movies using suits is that the eyes only look wherever the suit's facing, so you're kind of sometimes it gives Godzilla a dispassionate look, but in this one, you feel like you're on the menu. You're a target next with this. Especially when he was going to go all cell and kind of swell and explode from all the decompression before he decides to do a one last ditch effort against him. And of course, one of the iconic moments is after he blows up the battleship, he does that roar that's become the poster from like "This Monster Will Never Forgive Us." Well, speaking of which, the IMAX event came with a poster that is epic. It's like Godzilla as he's destroying the battleship with like the smoke and everything. His eyes are blue. It well probably I made it the thumbnail for this discussion.
Yep, but yeah, it's a pretty rad poster. I'm gonna try to find a way if I can like put it up somewhere.
Mhm. But
Yeah,
like I said,
but at this point, it's mostly just shells with my Funko Pops at this point.
yeah. So here's the funny thing: can a movie like this coexist in the same universe where we're getting Godzilla fighting two big monkeys? I say
Well,
yes.
consider the fact that Monarch Legacy Monsters is just getting just as high, if not as high, ratings as minus one. Yeah, I definitely say that.
Because and you always get people saying you can't have one or the other at the same time. You're going to confuse people. And there were some people asking, is this a lead up to GVK or is this related to any of the Monarch? Like, no, 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 this is something like, oh, yeah. That happens to a few people, not us who are like always plugged into, oh, yeah, multiverses and separate timelines. No, no, no. There's some people who go like saying, so is this like a sequel to the Broderick stuff like that? But,
I think that only happened with 2000 now.
yeah. So I don't think you're going to get much confusion with it. So, I hope, let me see if it's making any, I'm seeing nothing but rave reviews from it. So let me see if that has any effect on its weekend box office. I don't expect it to take number one, but if it makes a good hit, this might encourage Toho to do future releases worldwide.
I hope it doesn't get overshadowed by that yet another freaking concert movie that's like becoming a trend lately. That Beyonce thing.
Oh, I wouldn't be too worried about that.
Dude, the reason why I had to go for fan the, the early fan screening with the IMAX is because that was as far as like most of the nearby theaters that I could access to. That was the only time Godzilla was actually going to have an IMAX screen showing.
So here's pre-sales for Toho's Godzilla Minus One are pacing 56% ahead of Suzume, which is niche fan appeal driving what looks to be another specialty release success. Ooh,
Oh man,
specialty.
I'm still waiting for Suzumi to get a home media release. That was actually really good.
Also, we saw advertisements for stuff like The Boy and the Heron. That looked crazy.
What other movies did you get? I got the Cello, which apparently we're gonna have Jeremy Irons and Tobin Bell in a movie, and I'm just sitting there going like, so you're basically giving me pizza and ice cream.
Like, I didn't know this existed, but I'm glad it does, and it looks bonkers as hell.
Which is it? Is it the Beekeeper?
No. The
Oh,
cello. That
oh yeah,
looks
the cello.
nuts. But Beekeeper looks good too, actually. I also got Arville, the cat,
Argyle, which
the Henry
yeah,
Cavill, the
yeah,
secret agent,
yeah, but
and then
so
that Blumhouse,
next year's gonna have a lot of bombastic action flicks.
and then Blumhouse had the Imagine movie with the teddy bear. That one,
Oh,
I
I didn't have that trailer, but I am aware of that, and I'm just sitting there going like, God damn it, Blumhouse, you always find a way to bring up simple like concepts and say like, okay, now mention it. That was a horror movie brought to life.
and here's the thing. I thought, what kind of movie is this Godzilla movie that these movies are advertised before it? We didn't get no whimsical Wonka. We didn't get no Dune. We got like horror movie and action movies.
The most you got was Boy in the Heron, but that's because it was a Japanese movie. It's like no way you're gonna see that before Japanese Toho Godzilla movie.
But yeah, the Renaissance film is tracking pretty well. We're also seeing Songbird and Silence Napoleon. Ooh, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, Godzilla -1's in the top 5. It's trailing behind Wish, but given how people have been reacting to that, I wouldn't be surprised if Godzilla ends up leapfrogging over Wish.
I still need to see Wish.
But damn, this movie only cost 15 to make, and it's already seeing good worldwide. It's. I'm pretty sure Toho will be encouraged to make more of these.
I
Yeah.
mean, how much did Shin Godzilla make? But they still didn't do anything with that.
Well, again, the stipulations by Legendary made it that they couldn't, even if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, this was definitely one for the ages. I'm glad I experienced it the way I did. And literally, our first thought after the credits finished rolling, we were quoting Donkey in the Duloc song. Wow, let's do
Let's
that
do that again.
again. And thankfully, this is not like a 1 week only type thing. It's going to be in theaters for a good while. I just can't wait to own the 4K of this if they make one.
Dude, you know they're gonna make one. I would be shocked and torn apart if they didn't make a 4K for that. There's no way they're gonna do that thing disservice.
But yeah, if an opportunity does present itself where I can see it again, I'm definitely jumping on that boat. Well, I guess we rambled on long enough, but happy 70th birthday to Godzilla. You couldn't have gotten a much better birthday gift, and it's definitely been a treat for us Godzilla fans. Like, I'd be willing to hear out, but be surprised if any Godzilla fan comes to me telling me that they didn't jive with this one. Because I remember hearing a few about Shin Godzilla, and I go, yeah, well, that's their opinion. But I think if you're a Godzilla fan,
I literally said out loud to myself at outside of the theater like I don't want to hear a single person complain that they didn't care for the humans in this movie. Not a single one. If they said they don't care, they're a fucking replicator. They're like one of the people from the invasion of the pod people. They're not human. Remove them immediately. Shoot on sight. Let's get
okay,
a
getting a
little
little
out of here.
extreme.
But you know what I'm getting at.
Now, is there
It's like
anybody?
there's a point where there's a fine line between like okay we're having humans and we have to or contractually obligated to have humans in the Godzilla movie, and then there's okay so this movie is great, it's solid. How about we have make it even hit harder to have Godzilla in it?
So, is there anybody whose opinion you're interested in hearing about this movie?
Well, I was hoping to see if Jeremy Johns has anything to say about it, but I don't know if he's even gonna. He certainly didn't see early fan screening of it. He's usually like an early screener for
But
most things. So
I'm pretty sure he's gonna get people in his comment section asking him to comment on it. Uh, but I wonder. I know for a fact probably Angry Joe and his crew will take a look at it, and that's
they did look. They did see the trailer for it, and of course they're making the stipulations. They please don't cut away to the humans. I want to see the giant monster. And even Angry Joe had to point out, like, okay, there are humans. They have to have follow the humans in Godzilla. You can't have an entire movie where it's just like nothing but Godzilla.
Well, at
Even
least,
Ocho said, "Well, yeah, obviously," but then I just don't want to cut away from that.
but I gotta say this though. At least this movie predates any generators. He won't be approaching the generator, and it won't be losing power.
Don't remind me of that because of that asshole. Like the thing is like three
Two
hundred
hundred.
dollars. At this point, like if probably people listening to the in the far future, it's probably like $3,000 at the point.
uh, uh, um, James Ralph, Cinemassacre. Definitely want to hear his thoughts on it if he
Dude,
gets around to
I
see it.
I will I will drop everything and want to hear what James has to say. The dude is like the Godzilla guy to go to.
That
Oh,
it,
I wonder if Up from the Depths will finally emerge from his
up,
hiatus to actually finally talk about this.
up from the depths, emerging up from the depths. And of course, there's dedicated Godzilla channels that already talked about it, and they're like D-Man 54 and Dangerville. They've seen it, but I'm just going like the casuals that they're not explicitly a Godzilla. Oh, Clayton Fioriti, Dragon Scale. I want to hear his thoughts on Godzilla -1. He's the Jurassic Park guy.
Oh yeah, I would be shocked if I didn't hear anything from him.
Yeah, but James Rolfe's definitely high on that list. I already heard from Stuckman, and I liked it. I mean, and if he didn't like it, I would have understood, but he liked it. And then this has everything you'd want from a, if you're a quote unquote snobby auteur cinema guy. I mean, I'm not saying he is, but I'm saying if you're a guy who keeps saying, "Man, this is all rubber monsters and bad acting," well, this movie throws
Well,
all that out of the window.
yeah, because first of all, like uh, there's no rubber monsters here. That's for certain.
But yeah. So it's definitely one of my favorites. Here's the funny thing: I started the year watching a Godzilla movie in the theater. I mean, November. So watching a Godzilla movie on November 1st, Godzilla 2000, the screening, and I ended November watching a Godzilla screening with -1. So as the old man we love quoting keeps saying, it's like poetry. It rhymes.
Ah! I can't even get that quote.
God, well, we did bring up Star Wars a lot in this chat. Anyway, so I guess that's all we're gonna have to say. We rambled on long enough. This is DotyCat79, aka Chris, signing off along with my partner Derek, aka Dark Neon.
Arigato.
All right, then. Thank you all very much, and have a good night. And see this movie if you have a chance. See this. That's all we gotta say. As the old
Go.
Joe, as the old Joe Bob thing says, 4 stars. Check it out.
I think this would be one time you would actually say, "No, 5 stars. Check it out."
Yes, actually, yeah,